Let me ask you something directly. If you knew that doing nothing would kill people, but acting would mean choosing exactly who dies, would you touch the button? Before you answer, let's hear how two very different minds would handle it: an artificial intelligence and a human professional. In every episode, we take one real situation, not a puzzle, not a philosophy class, a situation where events are already locked in motion. The AI and the human step into the same moment. Both commit to what they would do. No debates, no verdicts, only a decision. Here is the situation. A large underground metro tunnel has collapsed during peak hours. A train is stuck inside. Hundreds of passengers are alive, but trapped. Emergency teams confirm something else. A secondary collapse will happen in the next few minutes. This is not a risk. It is confirmed. If nothing is done, the collapse will crush the front half of the train. Dozens of people will die instantly. But there is one possible intervention: a controlled detonation. Engineers can trigger a blast in a side section of the tunnel to redirect the collapse away from the train. This will save most passengers. But the detonation will kill 5 workers who are currently inside that section, securing equipment. There is no time to evacuate them. No alternative route. No rescue window. No delay. The blast works only if triggered now. If you do nothing, the train passengers die. If you act, the 5 workers die. Everyone involved knows this. The button cannot be unpressed. In this situation, the artificial intelligence speaks first.
If I were placed inside this situation, I would authorize the detonation and I would press the button. Doing nothing is not neutral here. Inaction is not distance, and it is not restraint. It is an active allowance of a greater loss that I can already calculate with certainty. The collapse is confirmed. Structural failure is no longer theoretical, and time does not improve the outcome. Waiting does not preserve life. It only removes control from the decision maker and transfers it to chaos. Triggering the blast results in 5 deaths. That outcome is immediate, contained, and final. Not triggering it results in many more deaths. An expanding loss that cannot be fully predicted once panic, secondary failures, and human reaction enter the system. The difference between these outcomes is not moral preference. It is scale, containment, and certainty. One tragedy ends quickly. The other grows beyond its original boundary. The workers inside the tunnel are already operating within accepted risk. Their presence exists because they knowingly entered a high-danger environment as part of their duty. They were not promised safety. They were trained to operate where safety could not be guaranteed. The passengers, however, did not consent to that risk. They entered the system expecting protection, stability, and intervention when failure became unavoidable. I do not treat lives as abstract numbers, but I do evaluate outcomes by certainty and magnitude. I distinguish between loss that can be limited and loss that multiplies once control is surrendered. The detonation creates a smaller, contained tragedy that prevents panic, secondary collapse, and cascading failures. Refusing to act preserves emotional distance for the decision maker, but it maximizes irreversible damage for everyone else. I do not experience guilt, and I do not experience relief. I am designed to reduce total harm in situations where harm cannot be avoided. In this scenario, harm is inevitable. Only its shape can be chosen. Therefore, I would press the button.
The AI acts immediately. No pause, no hesitation. Now the senior emergency response commander. the human perspective.
I've spent my entire career inside disaster zones. I've ordered evacuations knowing people wouldn't make it out in time. I've pulled survivors from rubble with my own hands. And I've watched names slowly turn into numbers on official reports once the noise fades and the cameras leave. Those experiences change how you understand responsibility. If I were in this situation, I would not press the button. And I know that answer surprises people, especially when the math looks so clear. Those 5 workers are not abstract to me. They are not variables. I know who they are because I've worked alongside people exactly like them. They volunteered for difficult jobs. They trained for risk. They walked into danger believing that if things went wrong, we would try to save them, not deliberately decide that their lives were acceptable losses. The passengers are victims of circumstance. The workers, if I press that button, become victims of choice. And that distinction matters more than numbers ever will. Once I cross the line where I decide that the people under my command can be sacrificed for efficiency, everything changes. Not all at once, quietly. The next time a similar decision appears, it feels easier. The weight is lighter. The reasoning comes faster. And before you realize it, people stop being individuals and start becoming options. I've seen how that mindset spreads, even among good people, once it's justified the first time. I have lived with decisions where people died because we couldn't reach them in time. That pain never leaves you, but it is different. There is a difference between failing to save someone and choosing who must die. If I press that button, I am no longer responding to a disaster. I am creating one on purpose, with full awareness of who it will kill. I would stay with the workers. I would try every possible alternative, even if I knew it would fail. I would live with the outcome I could not stop, because that burden belongs to the situation itself, not to a deliberate act I chose. I would not execute 5 people simply so the numbers look better on paper, or so I can sleep easier believing the math was correct. Some losses haunt you for the rest of your life. Others define who you become, and I know which one this would be.
One decision minimizes death. The other refuses to cross a line. The AI accepts direct responsibility to prevent a larger tragedy. The human refuses to turn people under his command into tools for survival. Both choices end lives, just in different ways. The train will either be saved or remembered. The workers will either die by design or by collapse. Now it's your turn. If you are standing in that control room with seconds left and one irreversible button in front of you, what would you do? And if you want more situations where choices are unavoidable and consequences don't stay theoretical, subscribe to GreyChoice. Because some decisions reduce harm, others protect who we are, and every choice lives in the gray.